fast dwindling democracy. To save our democracy, judiciary must rescue itself. Day after day, there is a mounting apprehension by the overwhelming masses on the future of our democracy, created by the plot by certain political forces to erode our democratic values and gains. Never in the history of this country, especially since 1999, have we seen deliberate, systematic, but criminal moves by some democratic institutions, some bad eggs in the Independent National Electoral Commission, security agencies, and the judiciary to change the narrative of what constitutes representative democracy in our country. We recall the recent Kogi Bayelsa State governorship elections marred by violence, resulting to killing and beheading of innocent souls by armed security agents and political thugs. Today, electoral victory in our political space has become a do-or-die affair, as demonstrated in the just concluded Kogi and Bayelsa State governorship elections. Never in the history of our nation had politicians employed the felonious services of voodoo angels to win elections, employing all manners of diabolical means to remain relevant in an already botched democratic system. Sadly, the Nigerian judiciary that ought to deepen our democracy by righting the wrongs perpetuated by politicians and some questionable INEC officials during elections is miserably becoming a laughingstock to the whole world. Some judges, especially those at the election petitions tribunals and Court of Appeal, now interpret the law to suit their whims and caprices. They are no longer cautious of the fact that their role in any democracy is to interpret and apply the law as well as the Constitution. We have been told by legal experts over and over again that subject to the rules of access and procedure, the judiciary is also responsible for providing impartial adjudication of disputes between the state and individuals, between individuals and between different levels of government within the state. In fact, it was the former Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Walter Onoyen, who stated, before he was forced out, that an effective judiciary safeguards the democratic process and enforces the rule of law. But what have we seen in the past few months, especially since the inauguration of the election petition tribunals after the 2019 general elections? Some suspicious judges now give decisions bordering on election petitions that conflicts with legal precedents. Some of them no longer stick to the principle of stare decisis, which is based on decided matters of the law on similar issues. Apparently, in order to serve their personal interests, many judges don't bother about the judicial precedents as it relates to election and pre-election matters. And in addition, there have been flagrant disregard to court orders by the powers that be recently. Besides, judicial officers now interpret the law to suit their whims and caprices, from the local government level to state and finally to upper chambers. The story of the pitiable, trivial legislation saturates the entire gamut of our cracking democracy, while the people flounder in miserable misery. What do you think informed the recent confusion created by the Court of Appeal in its judgment in Oyo State governorship election case, when the judges spoke from both sides of their mouths? More worrisome is the constitutional issue arising from the Imo State governorship election being tossed around by the judiciary. For instance, the well-known trust of ABGA and Senator Ifeanyi Ararume's election petition against the last Guba election in Imo State is a clear breach of the Constitution by the Independent National Electoral Commission. By the declaration and return of Honorable Emeka Ihedioha as governor of Imo State, despite his failure to meet the constitutional minimum requirements of scoring 25% of the votes cast in each of at least 2/3 of the local government areas in the state in the last general election. Imo State has 27 local government areas, and 2/3 of 27 is 18. Ihedioha only scored 25% of the votes cast in 11 local government areas out of 27. as clearly stated in Form EC8D, which is summary of results from LGA's collation at state level, Imo State. Personally certified as certified true copy, CTC, by the head of the legal department, Imo State INEC, O. Elekwa Esquire, on March 20th, 2019. And the CTC was tendered and admitted in evidence at the Election Petition Tribunal. Also, an expert who holds a BSc Maths, MSc Maths, and PhD Maths, and head of Department of Mathematics at Alva and Ikoku Federal College of Education, Owerri, gave evidence analyzing from EC8D, summary of results from local government areas collation at the state level, to show that 2/3 of 27 is 18, and that 11 is below 18. Yet, his evidence was rejected by both the tribunal and the Court of Appeal on the grounds that he did not prove that he is an expert. And one now wonders who an expert is if a holder of PhD in mathematics with over 40 years experience as a lecturer is regarded as non-professional. As political party leaders, we are worried and concerned over unholy alliances between some wicked, devilish political forces and some dirty judiciary officials to set dangerous legal precedents in our democratic space. Because the requirements of Section 179, subsection 2 of the 1992 Constitution as amended in respect of spread does not require any legal gymnastics for interpretation. It therefore baffles our imaginations why and how the learned judges can find legal reasons to ignore such a brazen wrong against the Constitution. And we begin to wonder whether the principles of where there is a wrong, there is a remedy in our legal system has been buried by judges who ought to know better. Otherwise, we find to sensible reason or explanation by judges to brand documents personally certified in longhand with the name of the certifying officer and the office he occupies as hearsay. We do not think our law has degenerated to that point where CTC of documents are now branded as hearsay, as stated in the judgment of both Imo State Election Petition Tribunal and the Court of Appeal in Senator Erarume and Senator Hope Uzodima's petitions against the Hedioha. We are all stakeholders in our nation's democratic space. Our parties participated in the last Imo State governorship election, and what we want and what we're asking for is justice. And we hope that as we approach the final court of the land, which is the Supreme Court, the apex court will rise to the demand of justice by clarifying technicalities on the altar of substance and review the document EC8D that was the basis for the return of Honorable Hedioha as governor of Imo State. Because as many democratic institutions have canvassed, the legitimacy of democratic government is established in large measure by genuine, credible, free, fair, and acceptable elections. It is our strong view that Hedioha is not a product of a genuine election in view of the electoral fraud and other infractions that characterized the last Imo State governorship election. The apex court should also be concerned because as one of the stakeholders in the democratic space, unfolding events in our country show that Nigeria's democracy is gradually drifting into a kingdom of sorts. We currently have political overlords whose major preoccupation is to build a monarchy for themselves, and they are consolidating their electoral fraud by deliberately seducing some bad eggs within the judiciary. We cannot reward election riggers in our democracy. Those who are products of fraudulent electoral processes cannot rule over us. God forbid. It is our considered view, therefore, that for us to save our democracy, the judiciary must rescue itself, and the time to do it is now or never. Thank you. I am Agbomejo for and on behalf of concerned leaders of political parties. Thanks for listening.